I'm going to do a similar thing now with Keaiduo and pick an assortment of his games. We'll see how many I'm able to get through. No, I don't believe... Well, and before we jump into the games, let me figure out which one I had pulled up here to watch. I let it run through a bunch of ads, and so I don't want to reload it fresh, but we will start by looking at some general information about him. So here's his player profile on oracleselixir.com. We'll look at some stats by split just as an initial starting point. When I am scouting a player, for getting a first look and understanding who a player is and how they play, what kind of a player they are, this is about the amount of time I will spend, on my first setup, looking at stats and things like that. I will look at their stats by split. We don't have a lot here. We just have 2021 in LDL. Looks like he played 2 games in top lane, so we'll ignore those, unless something was funny in the data entry. CS is pretty high. Yeah, these are pretty good stats. So for a 50% win rate, to have over a 4 KDA, 8.7 CS per minute is, average. 480 DPM in what I haven't gone through a ton of LDL stats, but I assume that they fight a lot and would have higher DPMs. That's kind of average seeming. Decently high gold share, especially when you compare to spring, that it went up. So his stats improved from spring to summer. Now that I had a little more access to data in spring, so I have a little bit of laning stats. Things changed a little bit, but those are pretty good. In terms of his champion pool, this is all from this year. 12 games of Twisted Fate with a 58% win rate. That's a lot, but the win rate is just kind of like, what is that, 6-5 probably. Rise, Syndra, Victor. So some control mages. Rise is a little different. We've got Silas in there with a 2-4 record. 6 games of Renekton and 5 games of Viego bring him a bit of a different look. So you've got like 16 games on the TF Galio, 4 games of Syndra. This looks like he played a lot of different styles. Where's his Orianna? 1 game with a loss. Uh-oh. So he also played a Camille in top lane. So that's an irrelevant one. Okay, so I get a picture of like he likes the TF Galio, looks like. And the Rise also has that kind of semi-global kind of thing. And then control mages and then some other stuff, some melee like Berserk stuff. He's willing to try out the Seraphine. He's willing to go for the Echo or the Diana. So it looks like he plays a lot of different things, but has kind of that standard mid lane core of global influence and control mage. Gotcha Jay says... Hey, Tim, I'm sure you've answered this, but can you explain your TSM resources tweet? I feel like I'm missing context. So I tweeted out that I, from what I've heard, TSM have a very clear and strong plan and a lot of resources invested in integrating the 2 Chinese players, which is, I think, something that is very important because of, the potential culture shock and communication and all that kind of stuff, different competitive environment. I can't really talk on a lot more specifics or details. It's just more that I know that they didn't just think, where can we find some good young players? Oh, maybe in China, and go off and find them, and now they're going to figure it out as they go. I know that this was they had multiple different plans they could have pursued this offseason. Obviously, starting with Bjergsen coming back and putting a team around him, and then after that, you move on to some other ideas. But this was one of their plans of what would it look like if we brought in 2 Chinese players. What kind of roster would we want for that as a whole? Not just what 2 Chinese players we would get and then fill in around them. Oh, we're going to keep Huni and Spica, a couple of Chinese players. No, like this was what would they had multiple fully formed plans of what their team could look like under different circumstances, and one of them was with 2 Chinese players. Who would the rest of the roster be? Who would the coaching staff be? And beyond that, what kind of like we don't just need a translator, we need other stuff. Like we need people to learn, people to learn language on both sides. We need, other things of kind of how to integrate and incorporate and make these players comfortable. And there's a lot of planning and investment that they put into this for a very long amount of time, like well before actual free agency opened. This was not like a plan D. Let's try it out. So that's kind of some context there, but I can't really. I'm sure they'll talk details and about what they're planning to do and how they think it'll be helpful. But so getting into VOD review on this, we're going to want to watch some Control Mage stuff. We're going to obviously going to want to watch at least one Twisted Fate game, maybe one win and one loss on TF, since that was his most played champion. I picked out one of the Victor games. I think it's this one that I've opened already in another tab. So we're going to swap over to that and watch that to start with. Oops, that was an ad I just clicked. Such a busy site that it's hard to tell sometimes. Get the sound out of my ears. No offense. So they picked the Victor into the Lucian. Looks like Lucian could be flexed, but now they know it's not going to. So they're comfortable. I assume they picked the Ezreal and the Lucian and the Victor both as options that would be comfortable with the Lucian, depending on what OMD decided to do. Interesting comp. If they go for the Galio, it's a support Galio. Okay. Let's get into game here. So they've got Camille with Ignite. They've got Rumble, Victor, Ezreal, Galio. So the Victor can be either used to help anchor a 4-1, although I don't think you need... I mean, he's got more wave clear than the Ezreal, but Ezreal has more range. But Victor can catch waves on side lanes very safely, while the Camille is being the assertive one in a 1-3-1, so that can work. Rumble, Victor can mid-game teamfight very well, and so can Camille. Galio fits into that, and Ezreal. Yeah, so you can 5v5 with this. Not straight up front and back line 5v5. You want to get a little more creative, but pretty straightforward. You're up against Nar Nidalee, so that Camille's going to have to be very careful. Also Nidalee Lucian, so the Victor, I think they're going to be under attack in the early game a little bit. Maybe they can play a bit through bot lane. But the Rumble doesn't really want to fight early anyways until he has his ult. So I think they need to survive until 6, and the Victor needs to play accordingly. If you can... you're probably going to need to surrender some crab fights, because the Lucian's going to do more than the Victor early. The Nidalee's going to be more comfortable with that than the Rumble, I think. I guess you can get a lot of damage out, but setting that up, I think it's going to be easier for the Nidalee Lucian to set that up with the Gnar as well. Maybe you can play for bot crab. Looks like they want to path Rumble bot to top, though. Maybe he's going to path bot to top and then go for the bot crab, but we'll see. But I don't think the Victor has to be too concerned about winning the lane in terms of priority and so on, and helping fight for crabs and stuff, because they know they're gonna lose out a little bit pre-6. So I seem to have had a pretty poor read on how the top lane was going to play out. They're actually diving the Gnar that early. Wow. And I think he's That ad is very aggressive. I think Keaiduo is holding his TP here just in case he needs it to support the dive. So he's resetting. If he was going to TP for this dive, then he needed to reset like 3 seconds earlier. More, like 5 seconds earlier. But, of course, he doesn't have prio. So the Lucian is able to shove here, start his reset. 3, 4, 5, 6. He's a full 6 seconds behind. Like 6 seconds of just catching the farm before resetting. Yeah, his reset's entirely done by the time this dive is over. So he either needed to TP from lane without a reset, but I think his condition is really bad in his health and mana, so I don't this top dive is pretty wild. But it gets them, like, it does gain them some things. Trading the kills is not the worst thing because now you've got, Victor gets to TP mid and gains some tempo and control of that wave. And Camille gets to walk back top, gets a bit of gold, has, the advantage in that lane. Rumble gets some early gold, which, if you're going to try to go for fights in the mid game, that's not bad. So, like, it's a pretty even trade, but slightly favored, and I think that TTY could be fine with it. But it was not what I was expecting them to try to do. Let's speed this up a bit. So yeah, Victor is expecting to be catching at tower quite a lot in the lane phase here, which is what's happening. So just looking for him to CS well. Which, yeah, I mean, he's even. Given that Lucian TP'd top to defend that dive, being even in CS, maybe you could be a little bit better off, but it's not like below my expectation, really. So he's resetting second here again. Now, since he's down on tempo, this top lane situation is very iffy. And his team is still forcing it. Even though they are not in... those dives don't match their win conditions and don't match the map state in like tempo that they had available. And that's not Keaiduo's fault at all. I wonder where the pronunciation is going to land as a consensus on this for us, us English speakers. I've been saying Keaiduo. I've heard other people say Keaiduo, which is simpler, but simpler doesn't mean more correct. So, we'll see. I'll ask Clement at some point. Get him to teach me properly. Continuing to catch farm mid. He's going to move to help. But they're still losing. Okay, let's see this again. So he's walking up and going right after the Jace, it looks like. So Camille's caught. This is so annoying. I don't care about whatever that is. Camille's caught, and he's going to walk in. Now, could go after either of these targets, right? But Sakura, I think, went after the Jace. Or sorry, that's the Lucian. So he was just contributing to that same target. They couldn't pick it off. It's fine. That's just his teammate getting caught. Sure, why am I even saying Jace? I'm inting. That's what I'm doing. So he's leading his team in farm. He's on a pretty good farm pace. His team is like giving away stuff on the map. And it's not like he could have had control and been able to help. Like he's doing what his champion is going to do in this matchup. And again, like he's under pressure here. He's going to catch the CS. Make sure he's strong enough for team fights later. They can give away. I didn't notice how they picked up the dragon earlier, but it was part of the aftermath of all the top lane action. They just like kind of threw it in there. Okay, random solo kill on the Gnar. They really want to try to snowball this Camille for some reason. And they give up a dragon for it. It's very interesting because OMD should have been the team trying to snowball through top lane here, in my opinion. They had the Nidalee, they have Lucian able to generate prio and move to top. Gnar should be able to fight out some prio when needed, or just receive a gank. And yet TTY have been the aggressive one. All right, let's slow this one down. So Rumble ult is down, trying to defend their red buff here, I guess. Did they come? Galio is moving to help. Somebody CCs him here, I think. No, not a CC. Oh, the Elena goes in late after the damage has already been attempted and just dies. So Leona was late on that. Gnar comes in with his TP a little late. They don't finish the Rumble. Wow. So OMD played that fight really badly. And that allowed Keaiduo to just punish very easily. Get a lot of damage out. And now TTY are, pretty good spot. But I don't think TTY did anything special to win that fight. Like, they already had used Rumble ult kind of unnecessarily. Rather than saving it for an actual attempt to punish. And then OMD just kind of inted into them. And they took advantage. So, like, Keaiduo is doing kind of the right things, more so than most of his team. And it's, he's picking up the throws. Oh, TP coming in. Back it up, back it up. Herald play onto mid. Lucian resets, and I think, yeah, and he's the one TP flanking. That dreaded flanking Lucian. Actually, it is kind of scary. Keaiduo gets a little caught in the choke here by the Leona ult. Has flash, so flashes out and unloads. Controls the choke himself. Yeah, so good value out of his flash. I want to see something worthy of real comment in this game. Other than this is really mean, but he's like maybe the only one in this game. Not that I've been watching those really closely, but most of this game has revolved around his team and the other team making mistakes and him not. Put it that way. So he's got TP and he's catching top here. He's trying to fix some tempo. But of course, Camila is also pushing. What is that teleport? Okay, it's for the dragon fight and he wants to get on the right side of it. So that's fine, I guess. Gets them the dragon. And stacking these dragons is good. When you've got, Victor, Ezreal, Rumble, and they have to walk into you because you're the one controlling dragons, then you're in a pretty happy spot. And they've got like Leona to engage into you, but they need Gnar to flank, something like that. Where's the next piece of action? Should we just like jump 3 minutes ahead? Nah, this is LDL. They're not going to wait that long, are they? T2I are like getting all 3 lanes deep at once, which can be awkward. The enemy team doesn't really have pick tools aside from the Leona, though. Or like Kai'Sa ulting in off a really long range W with damage, but there's no CC coming with that. So I think it's pretty safe to get all 3 lanes throbbing. Gives you a lot of options of where to suddenly focus your pressure or something, I guess. Because like I would, and I said this off the bat with the team comps, I figured Victor's job in the mid game would be more about catching side lanes, not asserting on the side lane. Like let the Camille be assertive on the wave and let the Victor be more passive. You're also 5k gold ahead and have dragons, starting to stack, so you can kind of get away with more. But I still think you want the Victor like catching a side wave, maybe pushing it to river if you've got enough, the right map posture for it, and then grouping until you've got another one to catch. I don't think the Victor should be pushing that far forward. Of course, there's just a free Baron. This game is, I think this game's kind of done. They're late to a dragon, but the enemy team is much later. Camille drew them off into top side, so they get a free one. See if anything else interesting happens. Looks like there's a fight here. A 1-to-1 fight. I didn't go far enough back. Okay, so they've got mid and him down. Keaiduo is hitting bot with Rumble covering him. Red team engages and gets 2? No, just 1. They get the Ezreal. I mean, it's 8,000 gold. Sakura really wants this. I really want this. And I'm going to have it. Nope. Didn't get it. But they do get the inhib. It doesn't matter. Okay. So that's a Victor game. I don't think I need to watch more of his Victor. The general takeaways. He pushed his side lane too deep in the mid game, but team was way ahead, so it didn't matter. Generally did the right thing. Victor. He played Victor. Let's watch a Twisted Fate. Yeah? Or should we watch him on... we'll watch a couple of wins first before we try to look for negatives. We could watch a massively fed Viego game. Viego or Diana? What do you guys want? Let's do that. We'll watch something kind of edgy. Got one for Diana. All right, Diana. 903 Diana performance. Let's see how it went. All right, we only have 72 seconds of ads, so let's do some Q&A in the meantime. Now some people want Viego, but it's too late. You lost your chance. We can switch later. Can you give summary of your Shen-Yi thoughts? Sure, if you missed that portion. So generally with Shen-Yi, I saw a player who didn't make any real big mistakes or errors. I didn't spot anything consistently problematic in the games I've watched so far. He played the lanes out reasonably well, I thought, to the extent that I could kind of dissect that. He kind of deployed to the right places. When he had opportunities to do something aggressive for a team fight and start a fight, he didn't hesitate. He went for those, and they usually worked out pretty well. Nothing groundbreaking. He didn't create anything super unique or creative with his pathing or positioning. He didn't go searching for deep flanks or pincers or anything like that, which that's kind of a level up that maybe he can start to look for, and maybe I just haven't watched games where he has yet. But yeah, I didn't see the kind of the Hylissang style or something very creative like that where you'd never think he was ready from that angle for a fight. But I also noticed starting to have a bit of a trend emerge of him being a couple seconds late to fights, a little slow on some of his resets, a bit inefficient with some of his map movements and resets deploys. So some minor criticisms, some moderate opportunity for added creativity and playmaking, but in general, a pretty positive vibe. I feel okay with him so far. I will watch more and come up with, whether there's anything to add in on top of that. And I'm sure there'll be, more depth to the thoughts once I've had more time and see a bit more variety in his games. Do I think tactical not knowing Mandarin will affect their potential? Yeah, anytime the entire team can't communicate in the same language, it's potentially a little troublesome. I don't think Huni knows Mandarin, does he? Maybe he knows a little bit, a few words. So, in general, this team is going to have to figure out how to communicate, but that's what you get anytime you get a Korean or Chinese import or anything like that. It won't be beyond what Cloud9 are facing, for example. Do I think Keaiduo will start as a top 4 mid in the LCS or lower? I don't know. I've only watched one of his games so far. Well, this game is ready now. Opinions on Berserker, says Magical Cast. Well, I have watched some of him so far. My impression of Berserker so far is that he's a solid player, looks skilled, trends towards conservative and cleanup play. I haven't found games much where he, steps up for a big outplay or like breaks formation to catch somebody out. Mostly he maintains his ranges really well. He positions safely and like he uses his cooldowns well defensively, good reactions. Sometimes trends a little bit towards blowing a cooldown when it's not 100% sure he's going to need it. Like if it looks like that hitbox is about to hit him, he'll burn the flash and not take the risk. So that's the vibe I have on him, which fits in a little bit with kind of the general Korean mindset that you tend to get of tending towards conservative and controlled play. But not some kind of like giant pop-off hyper carry kind of so far. Mostly like he's always there to get the kill when you need it. He's not going to give up any unnecessary deaths. Looks really good and solid. We'll have to see how that translates. One more here before we jump into the game. From Simo Heya. Hey Tim, who is this year's JoJo? Who should we be watching this year in Academy with expectations of then jumping to the LCS soon? I need a lot more time to think through those Academy lineups and watch a few players that I haven't really watched yet. There are some players that I haven't watched at all, especially those coming in from outside of NA. But I think there are some names, like Wixie is one that has been on my mind a little bit. And I don't have the full spreadsheet in front of me, so I'm just going to like forget some names. But I've been relatively high on Wixie. I see Takeover mentioned in chat. I think he's pretty good. The fact that he's an import makes it a little tougher to make that call. I think Tomio is worth keeping an eye on to see if he can take a next big step. I'm not sure. I don't have anyone at this point, and we haven't even started playing any Academy games for next year. At this point, I don't have anybody on my mind. Like Kenby is already there. Kenby, if he'd been willing to work a little bit more from the bottom up, should be an LCS right now if he'd wanted to be, I think. But in terms of like an unknown-ish kind of a player, I'm not sure at this point. But I'll have a lot more content about that in the next month, right? Okay, let's jump in. So we're gonna watch a Diana game of Keaiduo. Yeah, Concept and Chat are also good callouts there for Immortals. And they've got really strong veterans around them to help them succeed. So they should be able to win. And then the question is, how do they perform within those wins? And what kind of versatility do they show? But those two are interesting. So let's jump ahead in the draft here. So there's the Diana. Rumble, Viego, Jace. Now who's going where? But he picks a Diana into it, which is actually a flex. I think at this point, 11-12, I think Diana is a flex and would have maybe be considered jungle first there. So I don't know what this draft is doing. I'm not here to VOD review LDL drafting on a patch that happened 5 months ago. That's for sure. Yeah, the edgy tag is great. Edward Gaming Youth, edgy. So, let's get a sense of Keaiduo's job in this comp. Obviously, the all-in engage of a Diana is a big deal. Being able to wombo with the team, being able to wombo with a Set and a Leona. So you can jump the Varus or the Jace if it's in a front to back. You can definitely pile in. Looking for flanks is going to be pretty useful. My gut says that Viego should have control of this lane, but I might be wrong. I don't recall how this lane matchup worked out. But well, that was a weird jump. Yeah, and I'll move my Move my camera for all of you. You want to see the player's face that we care about. I get it. There we go. Apparently, Sauron Squidmane says 0909 was the third team All-Pro LDL mid laner. They do All-Pro for LDL? Good for them. What I remember of Viego in lane is that he tends to trade very well melee to melee. That's like something that I'm applying to this. This is, mid-summer, so maybe things were nerfed by then, and maybe that's an out-of-date read. But we'll see. But yeah, Diana would have more wave clear. It should be able to push. I think you'd think that blue side with the Jace Rumble would have more control of top and be incentivized to play through the top lane. So if you're the Diana, maybe you want to be ready to cover for that. Maybe maintain your teleport. Maybe try to get enough push that you can lean for that first. But I think you're also just going to say, let's try not to lose in top lane. Kind of same thing with bot lane. Just as I'm about to say that I would expect Varus and Braum to be a little bit more in control here. The Ezreal Leona get a 2v2 kill for first blood. Now the Viego is teleporting. Diana uses it mid. Now, just for the context. For the context here. Because last game, his team was not very good. Now this game, his team gets a 2v2 kill in bot lane. Now they should just clear these minions and back off, and that's what the support is doing. But instead, the Xin is like, no, we should dive even though you guys have no health. That was really random. And now not only did they trade the kills 1-for-1, which is kind of rough, but they're also now that much more delayed on their bot lane resetting. So they blew a lot of tempo for that. The Diana just responds, he's not going to join that play because that play shouldn't have happened. He could have followed the TP, but they weren't going to gain anything, so I'm glad he didn't. I think the knee-jerk reaction would be to follow the TP. But he's in the middle of a reset here, so he would have had to stop right there and do it. I don't know what his condition was. Maybe his condition wasn't great. Probably wasn't. Now he used his TP mid for tempo. Now he's creating a window here with that crash of a full wave, and now he's leaning bot to help the dragon. So I think he's getting a better position here. They're not actually going to commit to the dragon because they have no bot prio. So, and that lack of bot prio probably stems back, if I went back and dissected it, probably stems back to them losing the time on that reset before. So instead, they retake prio mid on the next wave, go top together. Good play. So I'm taking a note that from what I'm seeing, with the Victor, he was playing for himself in lane because he had to, right? He's under pressure, so he's just going to last hit the best he can and try to convince his team to, give up minor losses elsewhere because he can't help. And they didn't do that, but it's not his fault. This game, he's showing a good sense with that teleport, the teleport he didn't use and then using it back into mid lane. Then being unable to use his prio mid as a result for dragon, so instead he works with the jungler to make a play into top side. So he's showing the note I'm taking is he's showing a decent sense of when to play for himself and when he can play for his team and where. So that's showing good map understanding, or recognition of what he can and can't do so far. I'm not talking about what's going on top lane because it doesn't really matter. So T2Y are ahead off of kills. The kills that have kind of emerged in various places. They get that dragon off of just some general map control and willingness to like be in good position for it. Keaiduo is going to have TP advantage for like 40 seconds later. We'll see if they make use of it. And that TP, like his ability to reset first and use that TP back to lane for tempo, helped to get that dragon. All right, let's slow this down and back it up. So here, we'll go back to when he uses his TP, right? So like, he's resetting with a little bit of prio there. Looked like the Viego was just clearing out like 3 or 4 minions. So he resets first, he TPs. Now the Viego shows on mid-wave. And instead of matching the reset, the Viego stays for another wave. Despite staying, since Set has walked down, looks like that's a big factor here. Since the Set has walked down and the Jace has TP but isn't going to use it, I don't know. EDG should have been able to contest that dragon and just kind of didn't. I don't know what they were doing, but I'm not going to worry about it too much. They get a plate on Jace, but because the Viego didn't match the reset before, now he has to reset and TP. Diana has a prio window here as a result. You're going to use that prio window to start heading top. Oh, he's actually just taking his own Raptors. So he's actually a little bit later because he was his goal there with that prio window was to farm Raptors, not to cover a top play. But it turned out that way, and the Israel ult is good. So that's actually kind of random and weird how that all played out. But Keaiduo did have a tempo advantage to do something, and he got something with it. Just not the something that I thought he was going to pursue. EDG went for that top lane play without Viego having prio. It's kind of a lane gank. It's kind of like the Rumble just wants to cover a wave crash, but instead gets kind of counter ganked. Yeah, they just wanted to drop the Herald here, but the wave gets cleared. Now the Viego's there, so they go for the dive, but like don't really commit. The Diana arrives. And what does he do on his arrival? I didn't really watch closely from a micro perspective. He flashes in, ults, helps get a kill. Yeah, and I mean, you can say that maybe if he moved a little faster, and I think going for the Raptors probably was the right play there because you probably didn't really expect much to happen. But then, and then it turned out he was able to be there in time for the fight regardless. But the whole thing was a little non-standard IMO. So they get the first turret. That was first, right? Yep. Despite enemy team having Herald. Now he's going to reset. You're about at the phase of the game where he can start playing side lane instead of mid lane. And putting the... But they're still going to keep him... What? Huh? What? What's going on here? Yeah, cover that. We don't want to watch. Okay, actually we do. We got to see this. So the Varus is solo crashing to turret with the Braum... I don't know. Was he covering mid or something? It was covered by replay, so I don't really know. The Varus is in a weird spot and dies. Takeaway. Diana takes the blue hand off, goes back mid, can now either pressure mid with that man advantage, or yeah, you don't have anything to cover bot, so you don't really need to lean bot here. But you can just to trap in fog a bit. They can get this turret without you, so I don't know why you're leaning bot there. That wasn't very efficient. But going in fog does kind of like make them have to think about what you're doing. So it's not like he had any other options of what to do with his time, right? When you go here and he gets this little window here, what can he do? He's got nobody in top lane because his top laner just TP'd bot for this play. He should be catching the top wave if he can get there safely. That's what he should be doing with his time. The Varus is dead, so there's no way the other team is going to defend that bot lane push, so you don't need to go and join it to push them off of it or dive if they don't leave. There's nothing to gain there. Your team already has that. The set is resetting to catch top, though, so you don't need to catch top. You could look for their raptors to clear, and that's maybe a little greedy. You could get vision in if you have anything, but I don't think he had anything to get vision with. Maybe did he place that ward on red buff? No, he doesn't have any wards. He kind of doesn't have anything to do. Like, he clears a ward. Okay. He gets a little bit of vision control. Yeah, no, in the end, I think that's all fine, actually, because the set was going to cover top off the reset. You can't move to top side, or they can try to pick you off, because you don't have any information up there. You just go into bot side, look if there's a camp you can steal or a ward you can clear, and you found a ward you could clear. So, yeah, in the end, that's all fine. And being in fog is better than not being in fog, just as a general principle. So I am okay with what he did there. Not looking like there's much of a fight there. So they're in a pretty good spot in this game. Enemy team just kind of hands them the mid turret for free. Why not? Now dragon's up. So you have free control of it. Why did they? So you've got it low. You bully somebody out here. Oh, you catch the Braum recalling, chunk him out. Jace is all alone because the Varus resets having no mana. I think the Varus should have stayed to clear that wave. They really wanted to get this reset off to buy for Dragon, but they end up in a bad spot for Dragon regardless. So I think what you want to do is clear that wave, and then, they're going to get the Dragon and maybe the turret either way. Yeah, you're going to want to overload topside as a response to the Dragon you're losing, and they kind of do. I'm just trying to think if there's a way they could have saved the mid turret and only lost the Dragon, but I don't know if there was. And that's not what I'm here to review. So now that Diana's side laning, teleports in for this fight. Catches the fleeing targets. Can't quite lock them down. Yeah. Overall, a small team gain. I feel like he should have maybe been able to do more with that. So he's generating prio. But they're behind in tempo because Viego's already hitting top inner and has Herald. So this is going to be, assuming that they have a good timer, like Viego's TP is almost back. Depending on how accurate their timer is on Viego's TP, they're saying we got a 5v4 here, plus we caught 2 of them to start it. He ults the Varus in place, and nobody is able to punish the flash afterwards. There was a cleanse too, so yeah, I mean, he spent ult and burned a summoner out of it. I think that's kind of fine. You'd hope for a little bit more, but maybe he could have, I think there's an opportunity here maybe to be a little more patient and to try to catch the Varus post-flash. Use the threat of your ult to get him to flash, not flash while you're standing on top, not ult while you're standing on top of him, right? But, yeah. I'm not going to, penalize him too badly for that. But I don't think he did the best he could have done. Probably. But out he comes again. So they win this fight. So who has the favorable setup here? So Keaiduo is catching in bot. Leona, Xin Zhao are moving into River Road. Ezreal's catching mid. So blue in general has more tempo here, and red is about to generate a window in like 10 seconds. Despite this being blue's better setup, the Xin Zhao goes in, right? Set is running first, and will be there well before. Xin Zhao gets out. Leona buys some time. In goes Diana. The Ezreal ult is into their low health targets. He doesn't get the most value out of Diana ult there, but it's kind of fine. Ooh. That wasn't the crispest. Like, I think that Viego ult was not very good, but he did avoid it with the Zhonya's or the stopwatch, whatever it was. So, I mean, it's a win. And he TP's out. It's a one fight. Keaiduo did an okay job in it. The fight was started very poorly and inefficiently. Like, TTY should have been fixing. They weren't finished fixing mid and bot. They needed to fix them a little bit more. Then they could have had that area control without a fight. But that's like a criticism of his teammates, not a criticism of Keaiduo. Once the fight started, he came in and he did an okay job, but I think could have done a little better. Boost that speed up again. Something's going on here. Drop that speed down again. Really wish I had hotkeys. So the Jace is caught. I gotta back this up a little further. So Keaiduo is kind of shadowing top wave, getting ready to reveal himself on it. The Jace is recalling without prio or vision and just gets caught. He used his ult for that. And I wonder if they could have gotten the kill without it. Could he have greeted? No, I think spending it is fine there. And that's game. All right. So overall, he was fine that game. The notes that the takeaway so far from that one, that as I said earlier, he seems to have a pretty decent sense of when to play in lane for himself and when he can play for his team and where to go with it. I think he's trying to do the right things in side lanes, but his team isn't really giving him the time and space to play it out. And his use of the Diana in team fights and like his ults and so on has been fine. Unexceptional, but generally good. So I'm getting kind of like I feel okay with him. I'm not seeing any red flags. There are definitely players that I can watch and scout this way, and in the first 5 or 6 games, I'm like, I don't know. I don't have that sense with either of these players yet. I don't have any bad feelings out of them. In coding spaces, sometimes I had one developer I used to work with who'd always say, this code has bad smells. I'm not getting any bad smells here, but not blown away. Okay, we got to watch Twisted Fate, right? Should we look for like his most recent Twisted Fate game? Let's do that. This is one that should, in theory, blow me away. All right, we got 90 seconds for some more talking time while I watch this watch ad. What role is the most lacking in young NA talent? I think right now, if you look beyond players who are currently in academy, and somewhat even if you look at the players who are in academy, top and support are both not great right now. Jungle is pretty strong. Bot lane is pretty strong. I think there are some good mids. Top and support need some more, need a bit more of a push. Need some people to emerge. Saran Squidmain really wants to know about my headphones. I like them. They have served me well. They are Sennheisers. Do I think Will take the next step to be on Kenvy's level this year? That depends what he does with his year. I'm hoping that he'll share some more information soon about what his plans are, what he's doing between school and being a player and what his goals are by the end of 2022, stuff like that. So it'll depend on how he uses his year and where he goes with it. Is NXI going to be a free agent? Looks like it. But I'm not 100% sure. All right. Time flies when you're having fun. So here we are. So we've got bans. Rise, Galio, Lissandra all banned. Zig's also banned, although it's more of a bot lane ban at that point, I think. There's a LeBlanc picked. And they're saving mid lane picks. They go Draven, Lee Sin. And then Viego, Aphelios come through. And then they go for a Thresh to deny the Aphelios Thresh. Go Draven, Thresh. Seems good. So they banned Set Camille. They banned supports. Now they go for the TF as the response to LeBlanc. So it can trade it out in lane and then try to play into the side lanes. Or also, TF ult into the back line to catch out the Aphelios. Since the entire rest of this team is going to want to dive through and catch the Draven. That's interesting because if you're the TF and you have teammates who are going to pile in with you, if you've got a tank or a couple of bruisers like Lee Sin and another champion similar to Lee Sin, like if you have the Renekton and Viego on your team, then you TF ult into the back line and blow up the Aphelios with them. But you've got Draven on your team. You want to stack around the Draven. Like Cassiopeia Draven, that synergizes as well. Come at us and we're going to stop you and blow you up. TF is now going to convert into that kind of role, use gold card, like poke, and use gold card to keep your Draven and Cassiopeia able to carry. It's a top lane Cassio, by the way, which is a little weird, but not unprecedented. So his role is now not about diving the Aphelios. It becomes more of a control role and also side laning in general. And getting the Draven ahead early, of course. Okay. So there's a blue ward. Oh, that's actually interesting. I'm trying to figure out if blue team has info about Lee Sin's start. How that could affect the early decision making. Because they put a ward on the red buff, which they assume would spot him starting there. And it looks like he just starts Raptors and ignores red buff. So they might not know. They might think Lee Sin is doing a full bot to top clear. Which with Cassio able to dump mana and get prio early kind of works, right? And so the Viego might think, and red team does have info on Viego, start with that red ward on blue buff. Red team might think that they're going to have space to go after bot lane with the Viego. But instead, the Lee Sin is Raptors into bot side clear, back into top, which is just a delayed bot to top side clear. So it kind of is what they thought, but in a weird way. Let's see what the implications are. It's too late for them to dive on this wave. I don't know. It's not that important because it doesn't affect Keaiduo's decision making that much. So I don't want to take too much time to dissect it, but that was different and interesting. So Keaiduo's getting... Oh, no, he doesn't go through with the reset. He could have reset and TP'd there to then catch this wave and have his buy in, but instead he's going to reset off the next wave. LeBlanc has to go back after this one, has no mana. So now he's going to get a window. Now he's up in tempo. But possibly down in CS. Is he riding that wave all the way? No, he's going to clear the next wave too. And now while LeBlanc catches this one, what's he going to do with it? He's going to lean bot. Going into fog here is always the right call. So they have to act as if you are going somewhere, but he's not really intending to do much with it yet because he knows his bot lane is resetting and crashing. So like possibly when you go into the fog there, what you're telling the other team, what you're representing to them, and it looks like the bot lane had already reset, so there wasn't actually going to be a dive or anything. But you're telling them we might be invading, right? Maybe the Lee Sin is here. And I haven't watched the entire gameplay from the perspective of the rest of the champions. I don't know exactly what info Blue has. But around this timer, it's conceivable that there's a TF Lee Sin invade coming, and that Viego needs to be careful about it. Lee Sin is just reset at the top side, but he could have been walking around through mid instead of resetting. He probably should have shopped, but you know, they have to think at least. They have to use at least a small amount of brain power to think, what's the TF doing and what do we have to be worried about? So you saw that the LeBlanc followed into fog to help the Viego stay safe and loses 1 or 2 seconds on hitting that midwave sooner, maybe. I don't know. It keeps them on their toes, at the very least. Going for a second reset here. And he bought a stopwatch and ruby crystal? No, he has the stopwatch from his runes. He buys a ruby crystal and a ring. Dark seal. With the Merc Treads first, which I think are a pretty reasonable buy in this game, he's definitely building for utility at this point. That's a bad trade. Right after a reset, he goes that low. And now things go a little sideways in the bot lane. He's Summer Spellbook, not TP, so like it's a little harder for it to just like brute force a side lane play this early on. So it's not too surprising he hasn't been able to. But just the way the side lanes are playing out too, there hasn't been a good timing yet. But he won't want to go too much longer without making some kind of a play. So here's a bot lane crash. There's the play. Okay. Let's see how this sets up. So that's his latest reset here. LeBlanc is up in tempo, but it's Herald time. So you can make the read that LeBlanc is going to be able to push this wave, join Herald. You've probably got comps in the bot lane telling you Leona's there, if you didn't see her on a ward already. Cassio gets top prio, enough that... They didn't actually back off this Herald, did they? Renekton should have more prio here, I think. But of course, in the melee and arranged matchup, maybe he's just having a hard time with that. So anyways, like, generally speaking, Keaiduo is saying, we're giving up this top lane play. Whether they get Herald very quickly or whether they can, maybe Lee Sin and Cassio can scare them off it a bit. I'm less worried about what happens with this Herald than I am about crashing for Draven. Getting Draven fed is my win condition for this game in the early game. So, even though he's down in tempo, he evens up that wave. He goes bot. Takes the kill. Oh no! But whatever. And plates and all that. And so that play might be worth more than the Herald. Probably is worth more than the Herald. So the kill gold itself, especially if it went on the Draven, it would have been worth more. The kill gold is, about equal to a Herald charge. Assuming that they get one plate off of this as well, that puts them that much further ahead. And given that they were down in tempo for all of that and came out arguably ahead at very worst even, that's a pretty good outcome. And that's a good play. As a matter of fact, I should back up and I don't know if I can grab a timestamp for capturing this for B-roll later, but I'll just keep track of what the VOD timer is. There we go. I could have grabbed a link or two from maybe the Diana game too, but oh well. Wasn't that impressive. So gonna fight it out. Continue managing Windows for, Windows against. Needs his side lanes to set up opportunities, whether that's with a push or a pull. So here's a window. He just stands back in lane where he's in fog now. He's going to stand up on the wave and generate that much more prio now that he thinks LeBlanc has gone back. I don't think he knew, but he suspected. Dragon is in a minute, so now this reset is just in time for the dragon. But he kind of leaned top there. But no, I think he's coming out mid, because now on this bounce, when he clears this wave and bot has prio, now he's coming out with a good buy for dragon. What's he going to do with it? Renekton is TPing kind of late. Yeah, so this is where they're just front to backing with the Draven Cassio, right? They get the dragon and they get out. That's kind of fine. I think OMD are much more incentivized to fight at this phase of the game with the, Renekton, Viego, LeBlanc, very skirmishy. Phalios isn't strong yet. But given that, Draven has a completed mythic and nobody else in the game does, I think T2Y actually could have taken a fight there if they wanted to, but they don't feel like they need to. I think they feel like they scale better. And that's especially if they scale better in front to back 5v5ing and dragons. So I think they're pretty happy just taking dragons and letting the game play out, especially because they are in the lead and they probably feel it. Ooh. Can the TF come for this? No, he doesn't want to. Yeah, could he have come and helped with this? And should he have come and helped with this? So this is post-dragon. Let's see how it all... So post-dragon, Keaiduo is just standing mid. Oh, the Herald's here, so they clear it. They can't stop the charge, but they clear it, so there's no further damage. Now Keaiduo has to catch the rest of this cannon wave. There's a lot of vision around him, so it's hard for him to be in the fog at this point. He might not necessarily know. So he's now looking to generate tempo by stepping up on the next wave. I'm not sure how I feel about this. So he's probably thinking, generate tempo, there's going to be something bot soon. Lee Sin is in the area. After this camp, he can go bot. We can look to zone and dive. Or just zone or dive, really. And meanwhile, Cassio should be playing under threat. I'm the weak side. Bot lane is the strong side. So no, TF should not be playing for the top side here. You don't, because I don't think you're going to play to defend this weak side. You're going to play for like let them put all the pressure they want. We can trade that pressure in bot side. We can salvage the tempo with the TF ult if needed. So Cassio here, I think, should be playing more safely and not dying. The wave's not at the top turret yet, so you don't need to walk up towards it. You have no info. I think this is just an unneeded death from Cassio, and in the meantime, TF has generated the tempo out of mid, leans to cover the bot, realizes it's not needed. They've already zoned without me. What's he going to do? Farm Raptors? Catch the top wave because Cassio died and can't. Okay. Don't die. Cool. He had flash still. They had spent Renekton and Viego ults, so Renekton made him in the team fight. So that's fine. And now what he's TPing, Summoner Spellbook TPing out so he doesn't die. Draven's getting the turret in the meantime. That's all fine. I think he did kind of what he needed to. The whole situation wasn't ideal because of Cassio dying, but that's not his fault. So again, trying to generate windows with wave clear mid. And you can see he's continuing to build for utility, the glacial and the stopwatch, so he can just kind of control space for his carries, because that is the way this comp is going to play. So he's building the right way and doing the right thing. If he was taking a more aggressive role in the comp, you might look for like the RFC. Maybe he's still going to go RFC actually, but it's probably fairly standard. Again, I don't remember what all I'm not an expert on builds in general, but this was a while ago, so I don't remember how much this was completely standard or not. But he could have gone like cooldown boots or whatever. So I think he caught bot and is rotating cover mid here. They're going to go for a pick on Aphelios. Aphelios doesn't expose. Now they cover the Herald Charge top. This is good. They can trade an inner for an outer. I think you're pretty happy with that. And you're up in tempo on it. Oh, they're not even going to lose the outer, are they? Maybe they will. You might even be able to contest. No, you're not contesting the dragon. But are you looking for a fight after? So now you know. So Lee Sin has a chance to go for a smite steal here, but it's smarter of them to play for the fight. That Renekton TP was pretty bad, so you punish that. Ooh, flash stun. Yeah, finish him. There you go. Blue team could have been out of that, I think. The Renekton, I think, had better places to TP onto. But I think the Renekton figured, we're going to take this fight. They're going to jump me, I'm going to live, and we're going to punish. But that's not these comps or this game state with TTY being up in gold and up in items and all of that. And able to lock down frontline so much, and like you can't pile in to help the Renekton easily because it was in a tight area with TTY's comp. So that was a bad TP from the Renekton and a bad call overall, I think, from OMD. You rush that dragon and you get out. It's just way too easy to punish the Renekton here. And then you can pursue from range. So I got distracted with something on the screen for a second. What happened here? Is that it? Yeah, so spellbook TP from top into a Bot side overload to catch out the Renekton. TFL's stuns. And they finish it off. You can see it's getting pretty hard to kill the Renekton, but not that hard. LeBlanc gets time on turret, but every time since T2I are up in tempo, and a lot of that tempo is coming from Keaiduo, generating prio, LeBlanc is getting to hit turrets, and T2I are doing more on the map with multiple people. So it's a largely a tempo snowball, which is what Twisted Fate is all about. So I'd say I'm reasonably impressed with his performance this game. It's a game that has had that vibe of he's doing the right things. The overall map setup and the way the side lanes are playing out aren't necessarily letting him use the opportunities he's creating every time. But he's putting himself in position where if the rest of the map does the right thing, he's getting a window and he's ready to use it. And when it is there, he's using it. When it's not there because something else weird has happened, he's not inting at least. And, you're not expecting him to be able to make something out of nothing. So it's very much, again, that kind of that vibe of he seems to know what he's supposed to do and when he's supposed to do it. So here's a whole bunch of tempo. Take over the top side jungle. Back up to Baron. Rush it. Renekton is having to run from bot with no TP. OMD show on midwave. So T2 have a pretty good idea of how much time they have. Looks like they're committing to finish, which is a little risky. Oh, okay. The Lee Sin kicks out the Viego, so they secure the Baron. That's neat and tidy. Now they kill frontline and end the game. And they're like, look how far ahead they are at this point that they can... This is like killer instinct as a team that they're doing here. Is they didn't need to take this risk for a 21-minute Baron, but they knew going into it they were up like 6,000 or 7,000 gold. They had a ton of map control. They have good tools for receiving that engage, even if OMD had rushed in there a little faster and harder, they could have punished with a fight. Even if they lose the Baron, they're going to crush a fight afterwards probably. So they went for it. They said, there's like a 10% chance that this backfires on us and lets the other team back in the game. But most likely we're just going to end the game here. And I like that mindset. So, good game. Game is over at this point. An interesting thing is like sometimes you look at like both statistically and in terms of VOD review or eye test, especially if you're watching games live, the vibe you get from a game can often come from the way it ends. But that's not really the right way to VOD review this stuff. If you look at the game state right coming out of this fight, Keaiduo is 3-0-4 and leads the game in CS tied with Draven. That's a pretty good state, but the Draven's 5-1-3. Like the Draven has been the primary carry, as he should be. 3-0-4 is a pretty good scoreline. He's done solid, good things. They're up, 9,500 gold, 93 in kills, 2-2 in dragons. If you go back and look at the final scoreline, and I'm not going to watch the rest of this, I think he ends 6-0-11. What tells the better story of what he did in this game? 3-0-4 or 6-0-11? And if you watch the game actually play out and the way that extra 3 kills and 7 assists comes in, it's probably going to be like, oh, look how hard he's stomping them and how badly he's smashing them and carrying this game because, he's doing all this extra damage and jumping on them and killing the backline at will. But that's not really the real story of the game. What happens at the point that and I'm not going to watch the rest of this. What happens from that point onwards is not what happened in the game. That's the consequence of what happened in the game. So, his damage stats and his KDA are going way up, and the storytelling of, look how much he was able to jump all over them and do stuff. But that doesn't give you an accurate read on what actually happened. And I think especially like if you, and when you're watching a game being casted and so on, and I, this is one of the reasons among others that I'll often watch games on mute, is the storytelling of the game will be probably a lot of Keaiduo is smurfing on them and he's snowballing, and the Draven probably did even more kills and stuff like that. And you get that vibe of hype and excitement and building, and that's very good for the entertainment value of the game. But the analytical value of the game comes from the subtle things, the opportunities he created, the pressure, the moving to the right place at the right time, that culminated in a 3-0 and 4 score line, right? Which is a good score line. Don't get me wrong. I'm not taking anything away from what he did this game. He played very well. But 6-0 and 11 feels like he totally stomped the other team, which he didn't. He didn't stomp them. He beat them. He beat them cleanly. Anyways, that's like a very, very mild kind of a rant, if it's a rant at all. But I think I can do one more before I have to shut this down and do other things. So what do we want? Do we want a Viego? Game against Rare Adam. Where's that? I don't know. Maybe their LDL team has a totally different name. Is that UPA? Should we watch? Yeah, we should probably watch a losing game. We could watch him on an Aurelia with a Karthus. We could watch him on a Viego. Oh, that was him playing top lane. Don't want that. Yeah, it looks like he played a couple of games of top lane, which could just be like in-game role swaps for lane matchups, right? So we're not going to read too much on that. I want to watch him on Silas, I think, and we can watch this loss on Silas. Silas is a champion with a lot of skill expression, and he did play it a fair amount. And he had a good scoreline in a loss, so I'm curious. So I think I'm going to take that call. And I'll watch a lot more of these games on my own time, of course. All right, 90 seconds of ads. Here we go. It's QQ time. What do you got for me? Nothing? Anybody? Now I'm watching an ad about a basketball card game or something. I know people have questions that they're curious about. To recap my impressions so far, I feel like a bit of a broken record because I feel like I have similar overall vibes for both Keaiduo and Shenyi, but solid decision making, solid execution, minor areas where I can see some trends of needing improvement. Some opportunity for I'm not really seeing as much explosiveness as maybe I would hope for, but what about Chowie's effect on the TSM team? Yeah, I think that's part of their overall plan of bringing in these two LDL players is having a coach who can communicate with them and who can help them acclimate and be acclimating alongside them. I think Chowie was part of that plan as a whole, as far as I can tell. And it's one piece of several pieces they're putting together to say, this is how we're going to make this work. All right. Any roughly comparable players as far as play style? Let me think. Who's like a straight up solid support or a straight up solid mid? I guess like a maybe like a Jensen style mid. Plays a lot of different things but has a comfort zone. You know, generally makes the right calls but not necessarily super explosive. I think that's kind of how I'd characterize Jensen. From support perspective, yeah, I don't know. I don't have an easy comparison. It's kind of like vanilla player, like in a way, like and not in a bad way, not like boring, but like nothing super standouty so far that gives him a real identity. Just kind of generally solid. Okay. So Viego, first phase pick on red side. I believe it's a flex at this point. How would I, as a couch coach for TSM, that's hard to say, have the players allocate resources based on what you've seen so far? So in terms of the kinds of game plans they're going to play, I think when you have Huni, generally you're going to play a little more often into the top side. I think you've got a Twisted Fate player, a TF, Galio, Rise kind of a player. You can play into the side lanes. And you can play into both side lanes, but I think you're going to lean top a little more often. I think Spica is very versatile. I think so far it's looking like they have fairly versatile players overall. I think Tactical does a little better with resources than without, and so does Huni. So I think in general you're going to play through side lanes more than you're going to play through mid from what I've seen. But we'll see in this game, how he plays with the Viego. But it's kind of hard to say. I don't think they have a certain box they need to be put into for sure. Oh, right, he's playing the Silas this game. Sorry, not the Viego. I was thinking about watching a video game. PT Cook 13 says, do you think TSM or C9 have more questions surrounding their rosters and team going into next season? I feel like those two teams have shown a willingness to think outside the box. I think there are more open questions with C9 than there are with TSM. I think both have the kind of how well you're going to acclimatize the players question, mixing the cultures of the team and so on, mixing the communication of the team. But I think Cloud9 have more to answer with the whole Isles Winsome scenario. Obviously, the coaching is a bit more of like a, there's some unique ideas here, and how are they going to play it out? How is the Fudge roll swap going to work? That's all much more up in the air to me. TSM is just, how good are these players, and will they be comfortable and happy living in LA? And can they talk to each other? Like, it's kind of more standard questions. Maybe bigger questions in certain ways, but more standard questions. Okay. Looks like it was a pause before the game starts. Wonderful. Anybody? There we go. So as the Silas here, Akali ult's pretty good. Alistar ult is good, of course. And might be part of why you chose it. I don't remember the whole draft order. You can do some things with Zenjiao ult or with Set ult. Kai'Sa ult is like, you can do some creative things with the repositioning, but it's more about the Alistar ult and then the Akali ult. And he wants to... So the entire KSG team is going to come at you in the fight. They're going to flank and pincer and all of that kind of stuff. But all 5 of them want to go in. The Ezreal is going to be pretty self-sufficient or going to need to try to deal with that and avoid it. So I'm getting a little bit ahead of myself here. So the Ezreal is going to try to just stay alive as long as possible and, drop some Qs on them. And then meanwhile, the other 4 members of TTY are going to want to try to lock down key targets, whoever they can access best, and blow them up. So Silas's job, Silas and Viego are both in there to finish fights. They're the kind of the executioners. Well, the Ezreal is kind of the the poke and bait, and then the Gnar and Leona are like locked down. In terms of side laning, I think the Akali is probably going to take over the side lanes pretty hard. Set will be probably treat this as more of a 4-1 setup, with Set sometimes catching sides and then regrouping. I don't think you're going to assertively push with the Set. And the Silas is probably going to want to like push waves and move on the map. Look for ways to group and create those fights. So they've got Viego pathing top to bot. Keaiduo doesn't have control of the lane early. I'm not sure whether he's supposed to or not, so I'm just going to in this matchup, I don't know exactly how it would typically play out. I'm just going to observe it based on how it does play out. But the Akali is definitely winning this lane early. Probably is supposed to. So Viego just shows up just to help clear this wave, because otherwise the Silas probably would have died, maybe even to a solo dive there, if not a gank. So he buys breathing room for Keaiduo to use his TP and come back healthy with a Dark Seal and a control ward. I haven't seen any games yet where they relied on Keaiduo controlling his lane or being aggressive in lane. But that's partly from the games I picked to watch, I think. Like, I picked the Victor off the bat knowing that was the case based on matchup. The Diana is not really a, heavy lane control champion. Neither is Silas early. He's more about post 6. He's got a window here. Just gets a deep ward in. Well, not too deep, but gets a ward in. Now he's able to start trading a little more. I think probably at this point the W is going to help to sustain. I'm curious whether this is like a really high action game and that's why he comes out with, pretty high KDA. Whether there's a throw at the end. So now he's got a big wave to catch, but the Akali isn't doing anything with it. The Akali should be doing more with this window. So like here, should be staying in fog as long as possible. Coming to stand on this wave, like as a melee champion, you're not going to hit turret. And you could harass a little bit with Q, but not in a meaningful way, and Silas can sustain. So that Akali should have been using fog more there. Now Xin Zhao jumps to Viego, solo kills him for first blood. Well, great. What are we going to do with that? Maybe he could have helped. So he's leaning into lane a little bit and on the top side of his lane. Just a touch. You can see he's standing a little bit on the top side of his lane. But are you going to fight that 2v2? Probably not. Maybe you can help the Viego get out. And in fact, if we try to get, let's try to get a peek at this wave state too. Come on, minimap. I'm a little concerned that maybe him standing up on that wave. I think both waves are pretty full here. Maybe 5/5 in minions. It's really hard to tell. I think maybe if he's standing back here a little bit more and allowing the next wave to come into him, then not only can he step over here and possibly help the Viego live, his bot lane's resetting in the enemy bot lane they don't know about. So this is dangerous overall. The Viego shouldn't be exposing here probably, but maybe Keaiduo can save the situation a bit. And beyond that, if he hit this wave at all, he steals the Akali out hoping to go in, but he was like 1 second too late. If he had hit that wave at all, yeah, it's really hard to tell. I'm wondering if the wave started to push away from him, which is bad, because he can't do anything with it. Like, that gives him a prio window that he can't use, and maybe even allows the enemy to freeze a little bit on him. So, like, he didn't really want to be on that wave, is what I'm saying, regardless. But now he can either stand around and do nothing and let the let the wave just kind of like sit there neutral, or slowly push away from him, or he can try to crash it in and pull it back. Either way, they're losing the dragon. But that's not really his fault. It's just a subtlety of like, maybe there's something he could have done slightly more optimally. No big deal. You could also try to invade Raptors, as two people with their bot lane moving. And Silas having no mana. He's not primarily to blame for that, but they made that call together. And they had no business doing it. Just taking a note about, I didn't get the, 1 second here while I grab the URL of the video. There we go. Just taking a note of that as a B-roll option if I do have extended criticisms at all. I have not done any Berserker review on stream. I have watched some of his games on my own. And he seems like a pretty good player. I've said this elsewhere. Pretty good player, trends conservative, plays safe and fights from max range quite effectively. Uses his defensive cooldowns well. So now he's leaning bot as there's a crash coming in, going to join jungler. They want to dive if they can, but Kais is backing off. Now they're like, no, we're gonna go for it. Ooh, they catch the Alistar. Get him. And he TP's mid, takes a bit of damage for it, but no big deal. TP's mid to catch the wave. Yeah, I think that's okay. It's a reasonable play. Now they catch the Akali mid on the follow through here. So after he TP's back mid to catch this, Akali leans down, realizes she can't catch anyone. So now the Silas gets to push this through. De Leona, Viego help out. The Akali should be standing a turret and waiting for this wave. There's no reason to be up on that. So that's a punish of a mistake. The story of that is really about the mistake. Fight. Not really fight. He has to flash. I mean, his team's in such a weak spot here. Viego's still coming back out onto the map. Bot lane has no prio. Mid lane is even, and they don't have vision control over their own jungle quadrant. He walks in hoping to join up with the Viego to defend, like to get a good approach together onto the dragon, but he gets caught for it. So far, based on what I've seen in Keaiduo, I don't know. Oof. Eesh. Yeesh. Don't worry, I'll catch this mid wave for you, mid laner. Thanks. That's like a classic solo queue, like, you just fed my lane opponent, and I'm going to rage quit or int at a moment. Yikes. I'm not sure. I definitely can't commit to any kind of a ranking of Keaiduo yet because I need to watch a lot more of him. And there are also some other players that, like, I've only watched a handful of games of Tukui. I don't have a super strong, like, confident opinion of Blue yet. So I don't fully know how I'm going to rank all of that out. But I'm hoping by sometime next week I will start putting out those kinds of, like, rankings and things like that. Yeah, Keaiduo's teammates have not helped him look great so far. How is Tukui from the games I've seen of him? I wasn't like, oh no, this is going to be bad. And I also wasn't like, I think there's really something here. I was kind of like meh on him. I think he does some stuff okay in team fighting. I didn't see, when I watched the games of Tukui, I didn't see anything from him that made me realize, oh, that's why they're importing him, right? I guess what I can, so far, only a few games in, and like I said, I definitely need to watch more of both of them. firm up my opinions. But so far, I'm seeing some things from Keaiduo that say, okay, assuming that they also got more information that I don't have out of like tryouts and things, and assuming that that there are other games of his to watch, and I'm trying to get a balanced view, and that maybe there are more possible games or positive games that would convince me of this. There are some things in this where I can see, okay, he's doing a lot of things really right. He's got some fundamental stuff down, and his team has made it difficult for him to look good on the surface, right? It's, I always give teams more credit that they look beyond the team wins and losses and are able to understand a player at a deeper level. An example that I would look at for this in NA Academy over the past year is Pretty. I am one who I've been higher on Pretty all year long than pretty much anybody else. And part of that is that I think there is a chunk of people who look at him and his team and say they lost a lot, and his general vibe of his games have not been like he's going out there and stomping people and hard carrying stuff. But you need to look beyond what actually the results of the games and look at the decisions they make moment to moment, the ways they contribute, the positive plays they make, the negative plays they make, and get an actual read on the player. And if you can see he's put himself in a position to make a play, but the team's setup wasn't good, so he couldn't take advantage of it. Like I'm getting a lot of times with Keaiduo here. He's creating good windows of priority. He's farming well. He's getting the right items at the right times. But his team is making poor choices or just dumb mistakes that are, making it so that those advantages and opportunities he's creating don't get capitalized upon. That's not his fault. He's doing the right things for his part. And so I'm seeing a lot of that. I'm getting a similar vibe to like a young Chinese Pretty kind of thing in terms of relation to team context. Tien is another one like that on CLG Academy, where towards the end of the year, everything kind of blew up and he wasn't as good. But for most of the year, he was the one doing a lot of the right things, and the rest of the team was kind of holding, preventing him from realizing his setups. And so I'm getting a bit of that vibe from him, which is something I take positively, especially when, and I actually didn't take a close look at his biographical info. So according to Leaguepedia's info, Keaiduo is 20 and turning 21 towards end of spring split. So, but he has very little competitive experience. This was his first year playing pro. He played 1 year in LDL. I don't know what he was doing before that, but inexperienced player who's doing a lot of the fundamental right things. And I don't know how much of that comes from, coaching or whatever, but, these are all positive signs for what he can be. And watching, I think all this stemmed from people asking about Tukui. I haven't had that same vibe off of him so far, but with more games, maybe I'll get there. Maybe I'll start to see it. I do know that Tukui, I think, got like spring MVP in the LFL or something this year. And so, clearly a lot of people feel very positively about him. I just haven't found those points yet. Okay, let's see how this... There is a fight emerging. So he TPs into the back line of the fight. Again, he wants to try to finish off targets when they dogpile in. Israel pokes a bit. Viego steals the Herald. Keaiduo was right in the middle of it, which is what Silas wants to do. Did he use a stolen Alistar out there, or did he... He used his ult. So he steals the Alistar ult, yeah. Goes in, locks down the Xin Zhao. Executes the Alistar. And this, when they're fighting like this, both teams kind of want that, but I think it's a little bit better for TTY. And yet, Sun 9 flashes at the back of the fight. His job was kind of done. Now killing the Kaisa and the Akali is what they really want. So here's the Kaisa down here, going completely untouched while the bruiser-ish guys get hit. So somebody needed to shift targets onto the Kaisa, I think. So they're dumping a lot of damage and cooldowns into the Alistar here, which is not smart. But I mean, you kind of have to hit somebody at that point. It's hard to say whether he held the Alistar all too long. It's sometimes it's good to use it early for the tankiness it gives you, but also you kind of want to hold it to cleanse a CC, right? If you use it too early, then you didn't get rid of set stun, I guess. There isn't actually much to cleanse off. So, I don't know. Maybe he did hold it a bit long. Yeah, not having Mega Gnar does matter here for sure. Overall, I think T2Y maybe should have been able to get better out of there. Keaiduo was fine, though. So now Silas seems to be in a position of mostly catching side waves. I think he's pretty strong, but I imagine, and they did steal the Herald in there, which was a bit of a consolation prize. I imagine the Silas is going to have a hard time 1v1ing the Akali. I might be wrong. You're going to want to 2v1 side lanes and stuff like that, mostly. But look at what the Akali is doing to Gnar. Maybe the Silas will do better. Probably do better. Got him. Who's the player that has impressed me the most from these VOD reviews? Like just from the ones today, because I've only been watching Shenyu and Keaiduo. I really wasn't closely watching any of the other players, but if I'm not remembering wrong from this morning, I think Shenyu's mid laner was pretty good. Berserker's mid laner, I think, was ours. Am I thinking of someone else? It was pretty good. I made a very, if you're talking about like all the players that I've been scouting this offseason, like new players, I'm starting to get familiar with Summit for sure. I mean, I made an entire Run-It episode about Summit because I was so impressed with my VOD reviews of him. Has to TP out. Are there any players that have surprised you after watching VODs that don't align with player sentiment? So you mean like with public fan opinion or maybe like broadcast narrative opinion on the players? That's a tough question. I mean, the easy answer is, why aren't more people as excited about Jojo Pion as I am? That's the easy answer. But it kind of feels like cheating. I don't know. It's really hard to say. How do I feel about Isles? I think Isles is pretty good. I think he'll be like a mid-tier. He can be like a mid-tier LCS support. I would be somewhat surprised, based on what I've seen so far, if Isles isn't starting for C9 in lock-in. But who knows what might play out during boot camps and, synergy and communication. That makes a big difference, right? And maybe that communication ends up being more important than some other factors. So I'm not like last off season. So let's see if anything happens here. last off season, I was like out there actively defending Hooney, and everybody was super down on Hooney. And I said he's going to be fine. I'm not sure if I have a candidate for that yet at this point, other than generally being out there, saying that I'm a little annoyed or disappointed that people look at Jojo Pion, Tenacity, other players in that circumstance and just say, all I know about them is Academy mid laner, Academy top laner. How well has Academy mid laner and Academy top laner performed in the past? Oh, Palafox did this, and everybody said he was a great mid laner coming out of Academy. So I expect Jojo Pion to do the same performance level as Palafox. And so therefore, expectations are this. They're completely different players. They are their own people with their own paths, their own play styles, their own skill levels. That, like, I'm very disappointed when I see that kind of expectation setting. Oh, we know that the best Academy player at this position is this good. Well, I mean, first of all, do you know whether how much consensus was there about previous Academy promotion player, whoever they are, and whether they were the best in their position, or not? Did everybody agree with that, and by how much, and with what playstyle, and with what level of previous experience? Like, there are all these other things that come into it. That, maybe you don't have the time or opportunity to watch a whole bunch of Academy VODs and understand these new players who are getting promoted. Like, maybe you aren't even able to do the amount of time that I'm doing on Keaiduo right now, which I'm going to add more to it later, right? Like, I think I'd want to watch at least 10 games of the player before putting any level of confidence into my opinions on them, right? And that's pretty minimal to start with. So, like, if you can't put in that amount of time, fine, but then ask somebody who has, and then represent their opinions as their opinions. Like, hey, I haven't been able to watch this player a lot, but I've talked to some other people who have, and they say this, right? So, yeah, and like with Palafox as an example, I think he's fine. I think he's like just above the line of being LCS quality and can be a little better than that. But I was somebody who was like, I think I did put him at the end of 2020. I said he had been the best performing Academy mid, but I wasn't out there saying he has to be an LCS. He's the next big thing. And I think he's kind of shown to be, sure, he can have an LCS spot and he can improve enough to be like a mid-tier LCS mid laner. And that's great. And we need him, and we need more players like him for the NA talent pool and, competing for those spots. But don't take Palafox and like lift up your impressions of him and put him on the next player. For better or for worse, there are players who could come in and have less potential than him, and there are players who could come in and have more potential than him. You have to evaluate them on their own merits. So that's where most likely my impressions of players differ from common consensus is where fans just don't know anything about the players and are transplanting impressions of completely different players. I believe a fight is about to happen here. Getting back to Keaiduo. So he's standing in the front line with a stolen Alastral. He misses his second E. Now, he's got the stopwatch. Flashes out. See, like, sometimes it's tough to know how much of this to credit to the player versus how much to credit to Silas. I think he played that quite well, but also it's just Silas things at the same time with a stolen Alastral. But I think he did quite well there. Like, that is a good highlight video. Did I already grab this this URL? Okay, let me grab that URL for a second. So that's where his big KDA for the game comes from, for the first part of it at least. I haven't read anything from Parth's AMA yet. I'll check into it later. You know who I've seen do these kinds of Silas things? Guess. Guess who I've seen do these kinds of Silas things that have made me wonder whether it's just Silas things. And yes, to people who are watching on VODs or not reading Twitch chat, it is Jojo Pion. And others, of course. You killed my Viego again. He did TP for that. Did he need a TP for that? So he's catching again, like, partly because of game state. Actually, I mean, they are a little bit ahead in gold because of that fight, but generally map state, blue team has been up in tempo. So generally Silas is... When are they both doing a bot lane there? Why is Viego pushing out top lane while Silas farms jungle right beside Gnar, who's catching bot wave? I don't know what's going on. But anyways, the Viego gets caught. Keaiduo waits a few seconds. Then, just as the Viego dies, he TPs. That was not a good read of a TP. I guess he wants to be in the area for a possible Baron contest, but like, no, it's just a bad TP. TP. Now, this game is not lost yet, but this dragon coming up in 1 minute could do it. You see, he's 6-1-2, and I think that's the majority of the game. The bald head came to cut down the tree. Gotta love auto-translate. Sorry, just got distracted by that. This dragon could kind of secure it here, right? So blue team has full setup. They can look to set up a flank, which they need to be doing around the top side here with Set and or Akali. One of them or both of them, doesn't matter. Another stolen Alistar ult. Keaiduo goes over, wants to kind of counter flank. Now Mountain Soul is done as the fight starts. Leona goes in and dies. And nothing, there's nothing to do. I think there's a spectator thing where like the icon showing that he has stolen Alistar ult doesn't disappear when he uses it, because he had definitely used it at the start of that fight, but it kind of looked like he hadn't. So they got to catch the Kaisa. If they're going to go in proactively, they have to catch the Kaisa. Otherwise, I think you need to kind of receive and try to pick them apart. But he engaged onto, what, Alistar and Set? The Leona goes in on Alistar and Set. Is he going in trying to get into range for? No, the Leona dumps all his CC on the two tankiest members. And then they drop Alistar down to 60%, and then by then the fight's over. Rough. Yeah, and good point that the Gnar hadn't started building any rage yet. But I mean, they can't really walk into range easily. I mean, if they think they could, the Gnar could have walked up and started hitting something. Maybe what they can do is have like two people walking around the top here to try to battle out, because they should know that they're going to try to get, the other team is going to try to flank them, right? So they should walk around and try to find the flankers and build up Narbar on that, or try to chunk them out a little bit. Use Nar's range. Use Silas and Ezreal range even. But yeah, I don't know. Keaiduo had that one really big fight. He had some weak teleport usage. His team as a whole was behind in side laning and like map rotational play the entire time. I don't think he was bad. I think he was pretty good, but not amazing. And that's kind of been my vibe as a whole, right? Well, and that was the game. So, yeah, more to watch still. Especially if I focus on watching more of his wins and try to look for some like pop-off moments and more fights like that. Maybe I'll get a better sense. So I'll be watching for that. And I'll be watching more of Shenyi as well, trying to find more explosiveness and see what that looks like. Not that the players need to be explosive to be good, but it is something that I like to see. Especially if you're looking for players with high potential, right? Find the explosiveness and then fill in the. Generally speaking, I'd like to find young players or inexperienced players who have really good playmaking instincts and pop-off moments, and then you can fill in the solidity and the fundamentals and all of that, and fill that out afterwards. And yeah. I'll also look for more, try to see if there are any more weaknesses that I can kind of to fill in and get a better sense of these players. But overall, Keaiduo looks pretty solid. Like I'd say, I'm feeling reasonably positive about him, and we'll see whether that continues through more games or not. I think, I don't have anything that's making me worried for TSM at this point. I think, depending on how he transitions into playing against LCS competition and how much he's able to grow during Spring Split and so on, this could work out well. I'm not super sold on him yet, and I can't believe they found this guy, real diamond in the rough kind of thing. So we'll have to see. I'm kind of feeling even keel. But thanks for hanging out watching with these VOD reviews. I'll throw it all up on YouTube after as well. But for now, I am going to sign off of that.